Hey guys, welcome back to K Reviews Books. Today we're going to be talking about dark romance. I feel like dark romance can be a very intimidating genre or trope to get into, and I know that there's like some people say, certain starting points. I started off with a bang and we'll get into that, but let's just talk about all of the dark romance books I have read and where I think you should start if you're interested in exploring the dark romance world. On that note, let's get into the video. First things first is H.D. Carlton. Let's just talk about all of the books I have read by her. She is one of my favorite dark romance authors, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same exact way. H.D. Carlton is just such a deep, emotional writer. It has made me feel so many things when I've read her books, and I'm just going to explain it in the order that I read all her books, and it's not the correct order. So first things first is, out of all the books that I have on my dark romance shelf, I accidentally started Haunting Adeline first, and this is one of those books where you are just like, what the hell is going on? Especially if you read it as your first dark romance book, which I honestly wouldn't recommend because it's very intense. This story is about Zade Meadows, who is stalking Adeline. Adeline is a story writer, author, and she was doing I believe like a reading of her book or a meet and greet, an author meet and greet, and Zade sees her through the window and he is immediately enthralled by her. So he decides that he's gonna stalk her, but it is not the casual kind of like I love you from afar type of thing. He gets to the point where he's cutting men's hands off, because they touched her, and she eventually gets like Stockholm syndrome and falls in love with Zade. And Zade runs this elite force where they hunt down bad men. I'll put it for monetization purposes. Zade hunts down bad men and saves women. And him and Addie go through a lot. And this book was great. I absolutely loved it. If you heard stories, they're true. The rumors about what's in this book, it's true. Anything that you think you've heard, it's true. And I actually really liked it. I thought it was great for my first dark romance book. I was like, wow. But I'm also a little, you know what I mean? So this story was really good. Hunting Adeline, on the other hand, which is the second book in this duology, this book broke my soul. It follows Addie. She gets captured, and there is a month's time where she is missing and she is fighting for her life, and it is the most traumatic thing I have ever read, and it just broke my soul, and I think about it to this day. But honestly, Haunting Adeline is a great dark romance story. I don't think it's the best book to start with. I was just a nutbag and I started with it because I kept hearing things on TikTok about it. So I was like, well, I have to read this book and see what the hype's about. I absolutely loved it. If you want to start there and you're not really sensitive to certain triggers and stuff like that, this is a good book to start with. But if you are and you want to kind of like slowly work your way into it, then this is not the book to start with. Moving on, the next book I read by H.D. Carlton was Does It Hurt? And this is actually my favorite H.D. Carlton book. This story follows Enzo and Sawyer. Sawyer is kind of like a free spirit. She's been running around all over the world, and I believe they're in Australia, I think, in this book. And she is a wildfire. She gets a tattoo. She's sitting on a park bench and she's like, hey, you want to tattoo my leg? Like, girl, what? And she meets this guy named Enzo, and they have a really good time together, and they hit off really well. And if this was a fluffy romance, like, things would have went completely differently. She ends up stealing his wallet and trying to take his identity because that's what she does. She's a scammer, and he's not happy about it. So he tricks her into going on a boat ride with him one last time before she leaves, and he attacks her. I won't explain the details because, again, monetization, and there's sharks involved. So yes, if you heard rumors about this book and sharks, it's true. But then a storm hits and they're stuck out in the ocean and they crash, and they're able to make it onto an island with a lighthouse, and they are not alone. And the plot twist at the end, crazy. You have to read this story. It is so darn good. I absolutely loved it. Again, not a book to start with, but super good H.G. Carlton universe read. This is my favorite book of all time by H.G. Carlton. Next I read Shallow River by H.G. Carlton. This book took me a little while to get through. This is about DV, and it was just a rough read. She becomes super strong in the end, the female main character in this story, but it took me a couple days. Like, I had to keep putting this down and reading something else because it was that heartbreaking of a story. The ending was great, obviously, but it was just like listening to her, and I tabbed a decent amount, like listening to her experience and the things she was going through in this DV situation. It just is so heartbreaking, and anybody who experienced that knows, like, you try to tell yourself so many different things, and it's just, this story was heartbreaking, and I cried a lot reading this book. Satan's Affair by H.G. Carlton is about Sibby, and if you don't know, and if you haven't read Haunting and Hunting Adeline, Sibby is a character who has a lot of issues where she sees these henchmen, but they're not really there, at least we don't think, and these henchmen are also her playthings, and this is kind of like the beginning of her story and how she meets Xaden. How she meets Zaid, and this is so dirty, this book, but it's good. Like, it shows Sibby's personality, and I'm glad we meet, you know, Zaid in this book, but it's just a small little thing, and you're actually supposed to I believe supposed to read this before Haunting Adeline. So, I mean, again, it's a smutty darn book, but this is an introduction to like kind of who Sibby is. She has henchmen, and they help her. Her specialty in the whole series is she can smell rotting flesh, which means bad people, and she harms like bad people. So she's kind of like ends up teaming up with Zaid, but you know, she helps Zaid with that kind of situation, but people think she's a loony, and she hasn't been wrong yet in these series. So these stories are really good, and I know H.G. Carlton at one point is going to be coming out with a full Sibby book, not just like a little small intro one, and I know she's working really hard on that, so I'm super excited for that when it eventually comes out. But yes, this story is about Sibby, and it's kind of just like a little novella going into the cat and mouse duet. Next up is Where's Molly by H.G. Carlton. This came out last year. This is after the cat and mouse duet, which is Haunting and Hunting Adeline. This follows Molly, and if you've read Haunting and Hunting Adeline and haven't read Where's Molly, Molly is featured in the second book. Adeline, throughout the story, finds Molly's journals and reads them, and it's kind of like a leap of faith, hope for her as she's experiencing some terrible things. And so this is the story about Molly, and it is a great story. I just want to say one thing: Pig Farm, she's a badass. Molly is awesome. I absolutely love this story. This book was cool, and I wish we got more. Like, I know she's small, but like, I really do. Like, I would never push H.G. Carlton, but this, I wish we got more, because Molly's awesome. I absolutely loved her character so much. Lastly by H.G. Carlton is Phantom. This is also mentioned in the first book. The woman in this story, Adeline, finds her journal, and again, Addie's always finding journals, and she reads a lot about this mysterious stalker that is coming into, I think it's her grandmother's home or her aunt's home, something like that. And she reads the journals, and she was like, oh my gosh, that must have been what killed her. Well, you get to see the true story behind the phantom that her grandmother, aunt, whoever talks about in the Hunting Adeline series. And this story was super good. H.G. Carlton doesn't miss. Like, she doubts herself so much, especially in her posts and stuff, and I think that's what she's doing right now with like her Sibby book. Like, she will not release it because she like doubts herself. But H.G. Carlton, if you're listening to this, do not freaking doubt yourself, because you are an amazing writer. Like, these stories like are just so perfect. I can't even put it into words. Like, this came into my doorstep and I read it within a day. So good. Next up is another stalker romance, this time by Morgan Bridges. Morgan Bridges, I found her through TikTok originally, and I fell in love with this story so quick. This is a stalker romance. He kind of you know, follows her around and he does some creepy ass shit and she eventually is into it. And then the second book gets even crazier. But this is a good story, I think, for someone who is new to dark romance and is looking for something lighter and it's not as traumatic or triggering. So I think this series, the Possessing Her series, is one of the best ways to start your dark romance journeys. Again, this book and this book, super good. They're not super long. It's not super, I don't think the triggers are that bad. I don't even know if there is triggers. Oh, she lists triggers on her website. Like, look. This story was so darn good. So I think in the second book he does some not so great things, but like, girl, he was stalking you. What did you think he was gonna do now that he's like your protector and he loves you? Like, you know what I mean? So she was kind of like, oh my god, like she was always complaining, but like other than that, like this series was super darn good and an easy way to get into the dark romance sphere. Next up is My Dark Romeo. This story follows an FMC and an MMC, and he tricks her into a marriage of convenience. They're all like well-known rich individuals who end up being lined up to like marry certain people, and I don't think she wanted to marry the guy she was going to end up with, so she does one night of crazy things, like wants a fling, whatever, before she has to marry this man, and he sets her up so that they get exposed. And you know, it's kind of like a Bridgerton moment almost, like when you're caught kissing by an adult, well now you have to marry her, or duel or whatever. So he's like, well, looks like you have to marry me now because we got caught. And so she's tricked into marrying her enemy, and this story is so good. He's a total jerk, but you know, in the end you kind of like fall in love with him. But this series is super good, and again, one of those stories where it has dark romance tropes, tendencies or whatever, but this is just something that like is really good to start off as like an easy, there's not a lot of trigger romance stories, and it's so good. Like this, I love it. And the cover, like, obviously you want it, right? Another dark romance trope series that I like to recommend to people who are just starting off is the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark. This is her special edition. So the books kind of look like, here's what the books actually look like in the series. They have a white cover. And again, there's a decent amount of books in this series. And I thought this series was super good. Obviously you love other books more than the other one, but for the first book in this series, absolutely loved it. It's kind of more like a mafia family romance, so it kind of introduces you into that dark romance mafia world, but it's not super dark. You know, the characters are mean, there's some gore, but like other than that, like there's not a whole lot of like triggers in these stories, I don't think. And again, the Brutal Birthright is a great way to start, again, if you're wanting to look, because you see constantly on TikTok like mafia romance recommendations, but there's like so many triggers and you have no idea where to start because it's super scary and you don't want to scare yourself away from the dark romance world, but you also don't want to jump in headfirst and be totally turned off by these kind of romance stories. So the Brutal Birthright series, if you're looking for more mafia romance style, dark romance trope, this is the book for you. Sophie Lark series. This is super good. I really loved it, and this was one of the like second or third series I read in a dark romance trope, and I wished I started off here, not so intensely. So again, this is a great series to start if you have not read dark romance before. Another mafia romance style dark trope that I think is an easy read if you want to get into the world of dark romance is the Maid series. This series is super good. The first book I was kind of frustrated with because I think the FMC is a little immature, or at least acts a little immature, and I know they're younger in these stories, but she just acts like a child sometimes. It really annoys me, especially the tantrums. But like, again, they're rich and like they're supposed to be portraying these spoiled brats, so I get it, you know what I mean? But The Sweetest Oblivion by Daniel Laurie, this is the Maid series, the first book in the series. This series was super good. I absolutely loved it. Other than the first book, the second and third book I absolutely crushed. And this is, again, is like a mafia style romance. Again, check your triggers because there is some gory scenes in these books and, you know, a lot of roughhousing, but this series is super good and really easy to slowly start into the dark romance realm. And Again, I absolutely loved it. Again, it follows this like mafia romance. It follows this mafia romance. It follows this mafia family where she's like kind of in a realm of mafia. She's like the princess, and then, you know, there's men that come into this and she's like forced to marry. So like her sister's you know, this one I believe is her sister's marrying this guy, but he loves her and yada yada and so on and so forth. One of them I think steals her off to an island and like takes her away from the dad and kidnaps her. Like this series is super good, and I would 10 out of 10 recommend this, especially if you're new to dark romance. It's kind of like an easy intro into dark romance and mafia romance as well. Next up, we're going to talk about standalones, and some of these standalones I do not like. First things first is Pen Pal by J.T. Geisinger, and this story is super good. I absolutely loved it. I did not know what to expect. I was walking around in a Barnes & Noble, and I picked this book up because the cover, and some random girl standing next to me said, that story is so good, and there's a twist at the end. You'll be shocked. You have to read that story if you haven't already. And I was like, oh, okay. And his name was Dante, and I feel like anytime the main MMC is named Dante, I have to read it, especially because of Anna Huang. So, Pen Pal. It follows a woman whose husband passed, and she's in a house, in their house, and she's looking to remodel. And this roofing guy comes to the house, and yeah, I can't tell you anymore. So read this book. It's almost like dark romance meets thriller meets paranormal. Good story. Next up is Priest, which I think this is like an intertwinable standalone. I don't know if the next two books follow other characters, but this book is called Priest. Why do you think that? Because it's about a priest and he falls for someone, and it's a taboo romance. So a lot of people came at me on TikTok and was like, this isn't dark romance, it's taboo. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I consider this a trope of dark romance. I'm sorry. Yeah, it falls in taboo, but okay, sorry. Anyway, Priest, Sierra Simon. I did not like this story. I think it was just odd. It was hot, but it was odd. And there was no plot to it, except like right at the end, like when all this shit was happening. But it wasn't for me. I don't knock anybody who loves this story. I know a lot of people, some of my friends love this story. Just not for me. Taboo, dark romance kind of story, follows a priest who falls in love with someone, and it is a book. It's smutty. It's great. The smut is great. It's hot. But I just didn't like the story itself. Like, I feel like if there's a lot of smut in a book, it has to have a really good plot for me to be really into it, I guess. I don't know. But the dreaded Penelope Douglas Credence story. I love Penelope Douglas. I have read a lot of her books. Love her stories. Credence was the first book I ever read. This is a taboo dark romance story. There is triggers. It's a dark romance. But it's taboo as well. Her father passes away, and because I believe she's like just on the brink of being 18, or she lives on her, something like this, she is forced to go with her dad's step brother, which there's no relation. He was adopted. They're not blood related. So she moves in with her step uncle and her two step cousins. Again, not blood related. And at first she says, why choose? But then she chooses. Not into it. I just couldn't get over the fact. There was points in this book where I was like, oh my god, found family. But then I'm like, Kaylee, no, she's literally sleeping with her family. I don't know. I just couldn't get this taboo. I don't know. If y'all follow me on TikTok, you know I don't like this book. Lastly, in the standalone book series, this book I was heartbroken over. Look how thick she is. You would think after reading maybe like half of this book, like the FMC is going to turn into this ultimate badass, and like there's going to be these crazy spin-off stories, and it's going to be like so crazy. They're going to they're gonna teach her how to be like this crazy badass, like in this like mafia world. No, it's just a bunch of smut for like 700 pages, and like at times she learns to be a badass, but like 90% of this is just her being like, why choose you guys when I can sleep with all of you? And this book had so much more potential for what it actually was, and I think it's the only reason why I don't like it. Like, this is so, it could have been so good. Like, it's not a bad book, it could have been so much more. Like, I think that they could have, like, trained her, and she could have been, like, this, like, enchantress when they go, and she, like, turns into a badass, and she fight, like, all these things, and, like, it went nowhere. It went absolutely nowhere, and I was so upset. So, I don't hate this book as much as I do, like, Credence, but, like, there could have been so much more potential. Like, that's what bothers me so much about this story, is that there could have been so much more, but to each their own. Again, sticking on the Penelope Douglas train, we are going to talk about the Devil's Night series. This series took me forever to pick it up because I heard so many mixed things, and again, reading Credence for the first time, that really just turned me off of Penelope Douglas. But then I read this series. This series can be a standalone, interconnected technically, but I'm telling you right now, you have to read every single book in order to kind of understand what the hell's going on, because it's going to get confusing, even though they can be like, they're all different characters in each series, or in each book. So this series is super good. It follows the Four Horsemen, and they wreak havoc on Halloween night, and they each become obsessed with certain women, and there's some weird things that happen, and you hate some characters and then love some characters and then love some characters and hate some characters towards the end. So this series is super good, and I absolutely loved it. I crushed it within a week. This series was honestly really good, and I regretted not picking it up sooner. Again, check your triggers. There's a lot of messed up things that happens in these stories, and I would not recommend, if you're a first-time dark romance reader, to pick up this series because it's very dark, and things don't get lightened until the very end of the book, and even then it's still kind of like, oh, did we really think that this was okay to sweep under the rug, you know? So, but this story, again, Credence turned me off, but Douglas redeemed herself with this story. I absolutely loved the Devil Knight series, which I knew I was going to. Next up, I want to talk about the Rena Kent universe. Rena Kent actually on Instagram, like yesterday or 2 days ago, dropped the reading order of all of her series, and I've read them badly out of order, and I also still haven't read the rest of all her interconnected series. So I'm only going to talk about the ones that I have read, starting off with the Monster Trilogy book story. This follows an FMC who is hiding undercover as a man in the military in Russia, and she is helping her family who is in the mafia, and the sergeant of the military that she's in finds out she's a woman, and he becomes obsessed with her. And this story is just like so good. It's only 3 books, it's a trilogy, and again, I love this series so much. I don't want to get into any detail because I don't want to spoil this series for you, but if you have not read Rena Kent and you don't care about reading order, this series is super good. I actually wish I started with this. I also read the Monsters the God of My Monsters. This series by Rena Kent, so darn good. I absolutely loved it. I crushed this series in literally a week. And there's like 6 or 7 books in this series. I was like, bing, bop, boom, bop, 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 boom. My sister's friend, she was like, hey, Kaylee's super into dark romance. Has she read Rena Kent? And my sister was like, no. What do you recommend? Because of course I was like, give me a recommendation. And she gave me this series as a recommendation, and I loved it. It owns my heart, and I haven't read Kiss the Villain yet by Rena Kent. It's on my Kindle. I got it downloaded. It hit my Kindle at midnight when the book dropped. I have not read it yet. I've heard mixed things, so I'm a little nervous, but it's still intertwined with this series, and I loved it so much. I was so entranced with this world. When I was on the last book, I just wanted to cry, and it was just, this series was unmatched. It was the best dark romance series I have ever read. And again, I think Rena Kent could also be a good introduction to dark romance, but also not at the same time, because there is some really deep triggering things in these stories. But some of the stories are kind of like, you know, it's you know. But this series is unmatched. Rena Kent, you're a god. Next up, I want to talk about the Ruinous Love trilogy. This is Butcher and Blackbird, and there's 3 books. Obviously, it's a trilogy. This series is about serial killers and falling in love. The first book is about 2 serial killers who compete in games for years, and they fall in love with each other, and the rest of the series is so good. Skith and Sparrow, which is the last book in the series, is my absolute favorite. I love those 2 characters so much. And this series is honestly funny. It kind of like reminds me of a funny dark romance. And I think it's more dark romance because it's more about serial killing than it is anything like really triggering wise. But this series is so good. So good. If you have not read this, again, it's funny at times. Weird food things, like I don't know what Brynne Weaver's obsession with like mixing food with like bodily fluids. I don't know, but it's like super gross, but like so funny at the same time too, because like there's a point in this story where he's like sitting down and he's eating and she's like, stop eating, stop, and he's like, this is delicious, and she's like, stop eating it. Like, this series is just so darn good, and I think this is like a good way to also introduce yourself into dark romance, because it still has like that light fluffy feeling of like funniness throughout the series as well, because the characters' personalities are just really great in every book. I loved all of their characters, and I thought they were hilarious. So this series is also a great way to start your intro into dark romance, because again, there's like funny things that happen throughout these series or these books in the trilogy, and I think it makes it kind of lighthearted and fun. Next up is a book I wanted to talk about, and I have not completed this series yet, so I'm going to talk about this lightly. This is the Monsters and Muses series, and this is only book 1, Promises and Pomegranates. This is a retelling, I think, of Hades and Persephone, and I love this. It was so stinking good, and they share a night together, and it's like a moment of his weakness because he like hates her, and then he becomes obsessed with her, and this story is so good. I absolutely loved it, and the only reason why I'm only going to talk this like quickly is because I have not finished the series, so I don't want to be like, this is the best, you have to read it, because again, I haven't finished the story yet, but it's so good, like so good. So I'm hoping that like after I finish the series, I'm like just as in love with this series, but yeah, I absolutely love the first book, and I'm super excited. The second one is here. It is on my bookshelf, and I cannot wait to read it. And I don't know what kind of exclusive this was. I don't know if this was like a anniversary book or whatever, but like throughout the book, the author has gone through and made comments about like what she loved, what she found it funny, like how she ended up writing certain scenes and stuff like that. So it's almost like, you know, when you watch a TV show or a movie and they do like the tell-all version, and there's like the little snippets as you're watching, and like they tell you facts about, yeah, well, that's what this is. And I wish all the other books were like this, but I don't think they are. I only have, the second book I have doesn't have all these cute pictures and like the little writings in it. So love this story so much. We are on the final book of this video. This isn't the only video or books I have read for dark romance. There is others, just authors that I'm not going to share. But The Ritual. This is a dark college romance by Chantal Tesser. The reason I saved this for last is because this story is freaking dark, but so good. These follow men in college who are a part of this like legacy, and they have women that are the chosen ones, and like one of the things is I vow, you vow, we vow, and they pick a bride, and their bride is the one to sacrifice herself and be his like toy until he's ready to be married off by like who, you know, again, the rich family. We have an arranged marriage picked out for you. So the women in these stories are supposed to be the playthings throughout their college years while they're doing their vows, and they do like secret missions and all this cool stuff. And this series is so good, and this is actually a series I have yet to complete. I've only read the first 2 books in the series, and I think there's 5, but this so far, like, Chantal Tesser, you are a god as well. Like, this series is insane, and I absolutely love it. I just fell out of my dark romance era for a little while, and we're slowly getting back into it. But this series, again, if you are into dark romance already and you know your triggers and you know like this is what I can handle, if this is the book for you, definitely look into it because this series is super cool and I absolutely love them. Like these guys are insane. I just love these stories so much. They're like so out of pocket but so darn good. That is most of the dark romance stories that I have read and that I recommend. And, you know, again, I gave you little tidbits on if you should use this as a book just as a beginner, but you don't have to follow me and what I'm telling you to do. Again, you shouldn't listen to me because I started off my first dark romance book as Haunting Adeline, so that was on me. Hope you enjoyed this video on all of the things dark romance. I am a huge dark romance reader, and for whatever reason I resonate so heavy with dark romance books. They just like make me feel warm and fuzzy inside, which again, I told you all, I'm like, you know, so don't mind me. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and I will see you in the next one.